sanitize your Come here.
An 89-year-old grandmother targeted in Brooklyn by two men.
Kung flu, yeah. Kung flu.
We are already dealing with crazy tensions right now because who the hell knows how to deal with a pandemic? The hate incidents, they are very real, and we hear about this every day. I don't think you even have to be in America to know that this is happening to Asian Americans anymore.
I was thinking about, our discussion today, and I think one of the things that you and I really share is I think that we've chosen this really unconventional path. What was it from your early upbringing? What was it from, the way that you might have grown up or where you were from or your early experiences that kind of set you on this path?
I think for me, I grew up in a restaurant family. That is a super kind of normal thing in the Asian American community. And we're Fujianese, we're from like that part of China where there's a lot of people who are, restaurant workers or nail techs and stuff like that. A huge stereotype of a lot of Asian people is that we're meek and quiet and like law-abiding. But the people from my particular part of China have the opposite. So we are like loud as fuck. Like the stereotype is that we have no manners, speak at a comfortable scream at all times. You don't realize that like model minority Asians are really out there. Like I remember my sister and I, we're the first generation in our family to go to college. I remember thinking like, oh, everybody's gonna be from like a restaurant family, right? That's gotta be the case. And I went there and I remember asking like another Asian what their parents did. And she was like, oh yeah, they're cancer researchers. And I was like, I didn't even know that we're allowed to do that here.
Right.
And so I think for me, a lot of the whole reason why I decided to go into like this particular beat was that it was kind of strange that about this like giant segment of the population in Asian America, and none of that is covered in an accurate way. I think what it is that if you don't necessarily see us anywhere, and then your closest references to your race are just your family, and then you don't know anything beyond that, right? That perception of who you are is kind of warped.
I think you guys are gonna be glad you put me on merch. Our t-shirt table sales have been fire.
Stop. So how many have we sold?
9. Well, 2 got sent back, so 7.
There's a term, it's called symbolic annihilation. And so this is a research term. They coined it in the 70s. And symbolic annihilation is essentially this idea that if you don't exist in the fictional world, you're kind of non-existent, like symbolically, in like the real world. And so you start to have these kind of feelings that are like, okay, do I matter as a human in society?
You have this feeling though that within popular culture and society at large, you kind of feel like background music in a lot of ways, like maybe it was, okay, the Asian takeout spot, right? You know that we exist. That we're those 5 kids in your class that always seem to do the best at math. You know what I mean? Where did you go to college?
I went to Georgetown, which is not upstate New York, that's for sure. For so much of my life, because I hated my hometown and like not feeling ever like I was ever gonna fit in. I just wanted to go somewhere super different. I was like, wow, what could be more different than this? And then I get there and I'm like, and then I find out that, no one else is really from like Chinese restaurant culture. And then I also feel left out.
Hello, this is how we greet you. This is what we say every day when we meet you. We are Hello Peril, the band of...
In college, one huge thing that could have happened for me was one of my biggest mentors in life still today is the sociologist Michael Eric Dyson. And he deals with a ton of issues in the Black community, but I think that was the first time someone explained something to me in terms that I could really relate to and understand. I learned a lot about social justice through hip hop, and that was my first introduction to it. Immigrant families really relate to hip hop because it's about coming out of a struggle, and that's like our doctrine. I think I marvel a lot at how in one generation, you know, my dad couldn't speak any English, and then now like my job is to think all day. Like that's really crazy. And so if I don't use that and do something really real with it, it's such a huge disservice to everyone who came before and could not say anything, you know? It feels like a wasted privilege.
There's nobody that looks like us working at these huge mainstream platforms.
Right.
If it's not people like, you know, Kimmy sitting in that desk, it sort of falls on deaf ears, and all the things that we feel like are newsworthy and all the accomplishments and the strides that we're making are not being documented and reported on and celebrated necessarily.
We see something like Always Be My Maybe and we cry, you know, it's a huge deal for us. But you know, when like a white person sees Friends, it's not like an emotional thing. When they see any other sitcom, it's not an emotional thing because it's just something that has been part of the American lifestyle for so long. And so you do have to wonder, you know, if you don't have diversity in these positions of power, what happens? Does any of this even get noticed?
Who here likes tennis? All right. Well, it's a great sport.
To say failure is not an option, it's just not a motivating mantra for us. It's the fucking truth. You know, it's the fucking truth. Like, I don't have the luxury of being able to put out substandard material. I just don't have that luxury. It's like everything I do, my whole career is dependent upon my next album. You know, if we do something that's considered to be subpar, we might not get another shot, you know? I'm just curious, like, what is it like for you, knowing that you're one of the few out there doing this kind of work, just day in and day out, trying to present the kind of stories that you do?
I mean, it is a ton of pressure because, you know, Asian America is huge. You cannot represent everyone because you don't have that lived experience. But in order to do things really responsibly, you must reach out and you must envelop yourself in all these communities. Everything forward is kind of, you know, charts the path for the rest of, you know, news media and how they really cover Asian Americans. I think that a huge issue with race reporting is that, you know, a lot of times it's just a big old rant. It's like a rant and then people publish it and they just, you know, it's like that hot take and it's not necessarily backed up by anything. The truth is that the rest of America is not going to give a shit and they are not going to believe you unless you back it up with facts. You back it up with an expert. You go and reach out to scholars who have studied this, who have researched this, who have absolute, you know, empirical proof that these things are happening. There's a truth to be told. We're all going off this feeling, but, you know, how do you confirm any of these things? And so talking to enough people, making enough connections, and ensuring that everything is really accurately done, I think is just, you know, it's an obsession of mine for sure.
Well, listen, I really want to thank you. You know, I think, you know, this has been really enlightening for me. We're all very thankful and appreciative of the work that you do. I hope we can do it again.
Yeah, literally anytime. I'm down. I'm game.